Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first Rhyme of the Times for 2023. This is the news for week ending the 7th of January 2023. Funerals of two greats, incarceration of Tate, the House in a state, National Health Service debate. For many, Andrew Tate, the online influencer, is about as welcome as influenza. The dawning of 2023 was being hailed as Tate sat in a Bucharest jail. The misogynist with egomania, in a cell he remained in Romania. He and his brother Tristan and two other guys are suspected of some heinous crimes which he denies. Human trafficking, rape and other stuff. Are they guilty? We'll find out soon enough. New Year meant, as per tradition, messages of hope from politicians. Sunak said all our problems won't go away. He'll solve many, but some will stay. He knew the problems faced and he was on it. But with the war in Europe, he had to be honest. This time last year we had bluff and bluster. Rishi clearly wants to be the Boris Ghostbuster. Starmer, with a 26-point lead in the polls, stressed the need for him and Sunak to swap roles. A massive outpouring of grief and love for Pele, who most say had no one above. For 24 hours he was lying in state. In Sao Paulo, mourners did not abate. They queued for hours so they could pay their respects on the pitch where he used to play. Then the casket was placed on a fire engine, a traditional way to mark a great sports life ending, and transported from Santos' stadium past the house where stayed his mum. Still living at 100 years old, unaware of her son's death despite being told. And for such a record breaker, there's a kind of symmetry that his body now rests in the world's tallest cemetery. Pele chose to be laid to rest on the 9th floor in honour of the shirt number his dad always wore. Around 50,000 people were in St. Peter's Square on Thursday to attend a former Pope's funeral there. Since Benedict XVI in 2013 resigned, we've had two popes alive at the same time. Since the last day of last year, there's just his successor, and Francis led the service for his predecessor. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak announced his resolutions, 5 priorities where the country needs solutions. He promised to deliver what he's promised. He set the bar pretty low, to be honest. To halve inflation shouldn't be too hard. Economists have already said that's on the cards. To grow the economy should also be achieved, if economic forecasts are to be believed. To reduce public debt, we already knew. He'd said it enough times through 2022. To reduce the small boat crossings is déjà vu, so why should this time the pledge come true? The final priority to cut NHS waiting lists. NHS England is already working on this. In residential homes they're block booking beds, so bed blockers can go to care homes instead. It might be costly, it may be short term, but reducing waiting lists is the main concern. The 5-point plan was, in fact, pointless, most agree. They weren't smart targets, they were missing a T. So Rishi has given himself no real time pressure, and without being specific, targets can't be measured. And without being measured, all targets are achieved. So relevant is all that the acronym SMART leaves. So Rishi's first major speech, to put it bluntly, amounted to he's going to try and help our country. Healthcare dominated this week's discourse, with Tories accused of being out of touch, of course. An NHS crisis? Rishi says don't panic, it's just the fault of that COVID pandemic. On Thursday, Putin wanted to introduce the start of a 36-hour truce. The head of the Russian Orthodox Church, the bloodthirsty Patriarch Kirill, had urged the war to be paused to allow for celebrations for the Orthodox Christmas of both nations. The Ukrainians were having none of it. They were aware that it was probably bullshit. An opportunity for Russian forces to regroup and resupply ammunition to their troops. In the US, on the anniversary of the Capitol riots, in the House of Representatives, more disquiet. It had taken 3 days for the opposition to unravel, but still Kevin McCarthy could not quite grab the gavel. 14 ballots, and he still hadn't crossed the line, and an adjournment was agreed to January the 9th. But behind the scenes, horse trading continued. As just one more vote, Kevin McCarthy pursued. Then the last flipping Republican, Matt Gaetz, caved in. Gaetz opened the gates to let McCarthy win. So in the small hours of Saturday, finally success. 84 hours since the opening of Congress. The longest speaker contest since 1849 ended with McCarthy crawling over the line. But he had to negotiate with GOP's far right, so we'll have to operate in a straitjacket tight. And finally, spare a thought for the Royals. Spare goes on sale next week, warts and boils. Somehow though, in Spain this week, I'm not sure why, Prince Harry's book was available to buy, already causing a massive outcry.